Mary has been involved in the community for many years, and I'm going to read to you quite a bit about her background and her involvement. But I have to tell you that as the Commissioner for District 2 for these number of years, I have been personally enriched by the knowledge and experience that she's able to put forth in our community, has educated me on so many issues, and who has been just an unwavering and unfailing dedicated citizen for this community. It's taken too long for this award and this recognition to be bestowed upon Mary, because she has been a person who has steadfastly stood up for what she believes is right for our community, and who believes that quality of life is what we all achieve. And through working together cooperatively, neighbors with neighbors, neighbors with government, and neighbors with people who come and visit here and want to see a better Fort Lauderdale. And there's no better person that I can think of that this honor should be bestowed upon but Mary Fertig. And what we have today, a clock, some flowers, is just a mere token of our appreciation for all that you've done for us, Mary. So let me begin with this proclamation, and it reads as follows. The City of Fort Lauderdale, Citizen of the Year, 2017. Whereas Mary C. Fertig is the 7th generation Floridian who was born in Miami, Florida on November 30th. You don't have to say the date. You're soon going to have a birthday. And moved to Fort Lauderdale with her family just months after her birth, when her father left for Korea. As the daughter of a career military officer, she lived in Taiwan and Germany, as well as in many different areas of the United States. Whereas Mary Fertig graduated from Fort Lauderdale High School, as did her parents and 4 of her 6 children. She attended Florida State University, where she earned a Bachelor of Arts in History and was an active campus volunteer and a member of the Phi Mu fraternity. And whereas from 1972 to 1979, Mary Fertig was a teacher at Coconut Creek High School, and where she taught American history, political science, and leadership, and served as the student council's sponsor. How could I not have guessed all that? And whereas for more than 30 years, Mary Fertig has been a leading advocate for Fort Lauderdale's public schools, tirelessly working to ensure equity for every student, new and renovated facilities, quality leadership, and proper funding and resources so that every student has the opportunity to learn and to succeed. And whereas Mary's commitment to enhancing public education has benefited thousands of Fort Lauderdale youth through a myriad of specialized educational programs and new and renovated schools, including the Thurgood Marshall Elementary, Virginia Schumann Young Elementary, Croissant Park Elementary, Sunland Park Elementary, Sunrise Middle School, and most recently, Stranahan High School. And whereas Mary Fertig's extensive community involvement includes serving as a 3-time chairperson of the Broward Schools District Advisory Council and current chairperson for the Audit Committee and the Parent Community Involvement Task Force. She is a member of the Junior League of Greater Fort Lauderdale, I understand, for many years, and sits on the board of directors for the historic Stranahan House Museum, and previously served on the boards of Friends of Southside, Friends of Shippey House, the Fort Lauderdale Planning and Zoning Board, and the city's Education Advisory Board. And as chairperson of the Idlewild Improvement Association and founding president of Lauderdale Tomorrow, Mary Fertig has worked cooperatively to evaluate, to elevate to the character of livability of Fort Lauderdale, pursuing issues such as traffic, transportation, infrastructure, and smart growth to achieve a safer, more sustainable city today and into the future. And we keep trying. As a side note, in this regard, I just want you all to know that Mary was part of a group that was able to collect over 1,000 signatures of people that live in our community who have sought change and who continue to seek change to make the Barrier Island and areas throughout Fort Lauderdale a better place to live. And I'm reading these involvements that you have, and honestly, Mary, you must be 150 years old, because...
But you weren't going to tell me.
I was going to tell you when you were born. Because you know, so many of these outstanding achievements and things that aren't even mentioned here. I think it's a disservice to even attempt to list it, because the character and the involvement of Mary Fertig in this community has often gone unspoken. So if, in fact, if there's an Unspoken Hero Award someday, she's going to be the first recipient. And finally, whereas Mary Fertig passionately believes the power of volunteers can truly change the world, her grassroots advocacy for education, unwavering commitment to civic engagement, and stalwart dedication to the progress and advancement of the city of Fort Lauderdale is creating a brighter future for all. Now, therefore, it is proclaimed by the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale that, number one, Mary Fertig is hereby selected and honored as Citizen of the Year of the Citizen of Fort Lauderdale for 2017. We do this in recognition of her many accomplishments and valuable contributions to the City of Fort Lauderdale, and that this commission hereby publicly recognizes and acknowledges these achievements and contributions, and does hereby express its heartfelt appreciation to Mary. That, number two, that a keepsake honoring Mary Fertig as Citizen of the Year for the City of Fort Lauderdale for 2017 shall be presented to her, and her portrait shall hang in City Hall. And lastly, that a copy of this proclamation recognizing Mary Fertig as the 2017 Citizen of the Year shall be presented to her as further token of the sincere gratitude and appreciation of the City of Fort Lauderdale. Dated this November 7th, 2017, and signed by our Mayor, John P. Jack Seiler. Do you have a few words to say, Mary?
I do. Good morning, afternoon, I'm not sure which. My name is Mary Fertig, and I am a lifelong volunteer. I admit, I was surprised to receive this honor. For all that I have been a lifelong volunteer, I often find that the causes I pursue are controversial. And then I read the description and found that I was being recognized for my work on public education. So I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about public education in the City of Fort Lauderdale. When I began as a volunteer, I belonged to many organized volunteer groups. I would like to recognize one of those groups and what they do for their members and the community. The Junior League of Fort Lauderdale is celebrating the 80th year in our community. During those 80 years, it has trained women to be effective volunteers, to identify problems, research solutions, find resources, and implement projects. I was an active member from 1974 until 1991. Well, just during those years, the Junior League initiated many projects that have left a lasting legacy in our community, such as the Museum of Science and Discovery, Kids in Distress, Partners in Education, Art Amaze at the Museum of Art, which was another Junior League project. And those are just a few. But being trained by the Junior League prepared me to identify community issues and find resources and solutions. But it was the City of Fort Lauderdale that offered me the opportunity to take that training and use it on grassroots advocacy. It was in 1998, my husband Chris and I joined the Fort Lauderdale Committee on Community Schools. Public schools in our city were failing at the time with older facilities and declining enrollment, with resources being sent to new developing communities in Western Broward. Our schools were in decline. But a dedicated group of volunteers determined to ensure that public education did not just survive, but that it would thrive in our schools, joined together. Many of the original members of our committee are here today. They are an incredible group of people who worked with others in our city and our county to make sure that every child would have access to equitable resources, quality teachers, new or renovated schools, excellent programs, and equipment. We began in 1988 by advocating for dollars to rebuild the physical buildings, and we were successful beyond our wildest dreams in achieving the renovation of older schools and the building of a few new schools. But we soon realized that our task was much larger, and so we worked to attract quality teachers and educational leaders to build programs and attract students. When we began, I was told that no one would send their children to public school in Fort Lauderdale. Now people ask how they can get into Fort Lauderdale schools. We began with a small group. Over the years, more and more people joined us. In recent years, I've been thrilled to have the next generation join in the advocacy efforts and keep alive the work to promote public education that was begun by Broward's first school teacher over 100 years ago, Ivy Stranahan. We began There's no way really that I could recognize many of the people are here in the audience that have had an impact on our local schools, and there's no way to recognize them all. All of the people who joined in our efforts since we began, all of the people who attended school board meetings and boundary hearings, and sometimes until the sun came up. Men and women who wrote letters, attended meetings, and even on occasion engaged in peaceful protest. It is hard to believe that simply advocating for students to have books or safe learning environments can be controversial. But more than once over the years, people have actually falsely accused us of even manufacturing the pictures showing leaking roofs and unsafe learning conditions. So the city, for the most part, never recognized the work of the many citizens who saved our schools. But as I accept this award today, I accept it for all of those who believe that successful cities require strong schools and that every child deserves the opportunity to have the best education that we can possibly give them. In the past few, after 30 years, if there's a school that needs help, I can still pick up the phone and reach out to this group, or maybe email today, or maybe even I'll learn Twitter soon. So I can still reach out, and I know that every one of those original people in every one sense will do what they can to make sure that we direct resources to our public schools. So it was 2 years ago when we recognized that Stranahan deserved more, and yes, we will not stop until Stranahan High School gets what it should have. Let me just say that. In the past few years, as many of you know, I found a new goal for grassroots advocacy, the future of our city. Education is just one component of infrastructure required for a successful city. Clean water, removal of waste, functioning roads, these are also necessary. Just as 30 years ago, I found that volunteers would tirelessly and often anonymously tackle the challenges of education, I have seen the remarkable determination of volunteers to move forward issues that no one wants to discuss. Many of us have formed a grassroots group, Lauderdale Tomorrow, and again, I accept this award on behalf of every person who volunteers to create a better Fort Lauderdale for tomorrow's residents. I often think the most important thing to look at when judging a community is not the people who sit on the dais, but the people who sit in this audience and live in our community. If they are engaged, if they care, if they are willing to work for no reward other than the sake of doing what is right, you know you live in a great community. And this is the way I feel about Fort Lauderdale. I live in a great community, and so I thank you all for what you do to make it great. Thank you.